Hey, it's me, it's Goose. This is On With the Show, and I have decided to go live pretty much from here on out. Not because I don't enjoy doing videos. It's just with all the things, other things I have to do, it is very time consuming putting together, producing the kind of quality I want to put up. Plus, a lot of things happen so fast that I've just pretty much just decided that I want to. Um, just basically just go right out here and just go live. I want to treat this show like a live radio broadcast. Like I was in radio for 12, 13 years, and we did a lot of talk shows. This is what I wanted to basically have this show be, which is kind of like a live talk show. And um, so today I want to talk about Star Wars and the Star Wars franchise. And I believe that they can go in one of two directions, and that is either they can either go with doing it quite like the Acolyte, or they can do it quite like Skeleton Crew. Now I know lately the show Andor has just released, and I just started watching it. It looks pretty good. I loved Andor from the last time that I watched it from last season. It's season one. I was looking forward to season two. It's very different than what they had put out before for Star Wars, and I think after watching the Acolyte and then after watching Skeleton Crew, I have two definite opinions of how Star Wars can go. And I want to start with the Acolyte, not because it's one of those shows that was really, really reamed as far as as far as the public was concerned. It just seems like that there was a lot said about the Acolyte, and I watched it, and I didn't think it was a bad show. I didn't think it was a good show either, but I just didn't think it was a good. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was bad. I think it was just kind of It was just kind of like middle of the road. It was like it gave me no reason to kind of want to continue watching. I will say this though, interesting enough, I think Leslie Helen had a good idea. I think she had a good idea. As I now realize I don't have my microphone next to me. These are the things I need to start learning. I dropped my microphone on the floor. This is the crazy stuff that happens to me. You see why I didn't want to go live before. Anyway, um, basically, I'm just gonna hold the mic because I don't want any interference. But basically, it's just I think she had a great idea. I just think it was executed poorly because I think they tried to tell this story in a very nonlinear fashion, and it didn't work. It just didn't work because it felt like some of these episodes we were going back and forth between, like a flashback episode to now we're going back to what's going on now, and it continued to go. It felt wonky, and I think it really took away from some of the really good things because Lee Jung Ye, who was Master Soul, and Amanda Stenberg, who played May and played Osha, I think did admirable jobs. Um, I did like the performances of Charlie Barnett and Daphne Keene, but I also felt that at the same time Rebecca Henderson, who played Vanessa Rowe, and Carrie Ann Moss, who played Master Indara, was very stiff. And I don't know if that was a choice. I don't know if they're like, yeah, you want to. The thing about being a Jedi is that you cannot be attached. It'd be very unemotional. And I felt like they took that unemotional part way too far. I think that if they had streamlined it to where it was of a more of a linear story without having to go back and forth, I think it would have done a lot better. I think it would have been a show that would have like really have garnered some, because she had a great idea, and the great idea was we get to see the birth of the Sith. How did they come about? How did they happen? How is it? And I was like, yes, this is a good idea, because I was talking with, and I'm going to talk for a minute, but I had a chance to talk to some of the crew members from Skeleton Crew. And I said, that the Star Wars can go in one of two directions. They can either go before or they can go after. They can go before what happened with, the Phantom Menace, or maybe even some things during the Phantom Menace, and maybe even some things going on during, A New Hope with the Empire. They can tell those outside stories. One of the reasons why I like Andor is because it tells the story of how the rebellion came about. It tells the story about how, how we got Luke Skywalker and how we got, Princess Leia Organa. That's one of the things about, in watching the Mandalorian. We get to see some of those stories that happen outside of what's going, of what we were known before. And that's why I'm kind of really, really looking forward to seeing more of Andor, because it goes into how the rebellion was created. How was it done? And, who came about to putting this together? That is the key, in Star Wars, because at this point, they only have two directions they can go: before and after. And right now, I think they're working on before. I think they're working on stuff that was before. They're showing how stuff came about. I like the idea in the Acolyte that the Jedi is not necessarily always the good guy, that they are just as much of a political faction as anything else. And I think they kind of ran, chill up my spine, because the idea that the Jedi, because when I grew up, the Jedis were the good guys. You always wanted to be a Jedi. You wanted to be a Jedi. You wanted to carry that lightsaber. You wanted to. That's basically how it was. Now we get an idea of watching the Acolyte that the Jedis weren't always the good guys. That the Jedis were supposedly peacekeepers, but always stuck their nose in political business where it shouldn't have been. That is a fascinating story, but it was told so poorly that the one thing about a television show you want to be able to get your viewer to go to the next episode. Go to the next episode so we see what happens next. And with the Acolyte, I didn't have that. I had this kind of like, okay, I watched the show, nothing really, it explains a lot, but it just really didn't. I mean, I don't know if this was something that was done in the writer's room where it was like, I almost feel like they had a story and they realized they didn't have enough of a story. And so, hey, we need to put some other, we need to put some more in here. So we did, and we've already shot these episodes. What do we do? Oh, well, let's just write a story here about Anthony. He says, I want George Lucas back at Lucasfilm. I do too. Unfortunately, he's sold that, and Disney, they're not going to put George Lucas back. I would love to see George Lucas back as part of the. But I think the only thing they can do now is to find. I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, for the most part, have done a very admirable job in going forward with Star Wars, but you also kind of have to these. They've got to be people that are like true to the Lucas idea of what Star Wars is all about. I think it started out where Osha's being hunted, and she's like because the idea that we find out midway is that Master Soul thought May had died. Why not run with that story for the first 4 episodes, and then find out, oh my gosh, no, May is still alive, and the two of them are connected together through the Force, and Osha now has to try to bring her sister to justice. That would have been a great idea, but we didn't get that. And they even have the idea that May is being drawn into the dark side. That would have been a much better idea. But in skipping around, we get this just inane series that it didn't. The through line never worked. When we finally got to the end, where we were like, okay, now this is what it should have been about, it was too late. I mean, I was really not. I don't like the AI generated ruin Star Wars. Like, I agree with that. What they did to Luke in the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, I agree with that. I mean, the way that the AI is trying to do things now, I think kind of ruins the effect. You always want to have the actual person there, but Mark Hamill Mark Hamill is aged to where he doesn't look anything like what he was before. They had to do something. I thought it was kind of impressive that they had at least tried to do it, but it does kind of take you out of the experience. But anyway, so that's my idea with the Acolyte. They could have gone, they could continue to go in this direction, but I think what they should do is they should go into the route of the Skeleton Crew. Just recently saw the Skeleton Crew. I loved it. I thought it was one of the most top-notch ideas that they could have had in Disney Star Wars by basically making it a lot like it reminded me of Goonies. It reminded me so much of Goonies without so many of the kids. They had 4 kids. And the 4 kids, let me see if I can pull this up real quick so I can look at it. They had Ryan Kier Armstrong, Kyriana Crater, Robert Timothy Smith, and Ravi Kabat Conyers, who played the kind of crazy adventure, which was what the one kid wanted. He wanted